I sacrificed my rook 3 times, and this was one of the most insane games I've played in a long time. I end the game with 2 seconds on the clock. With that being said, let's hop right in. My opponent was rated around mid-1700s, and he played d4. We went to a queen's gambit declined exchange variation. Played bishop g5, and I just defend my center, and then I played h6. My opponent, after the game, said he's never seen this move order before with c6 and then h6, which is really surprising to me because this is one of the main ways to play, so I was kind of surprised that he hadn't seen that move order before. The time control, so I know this time control for this game is game in 40, delay 5, and this is a no engine recap until the very end. So that being said, after I played h6, he moved his bishop back. I developed a piece. We exchanged, and he develops, I develop, he develops, I develop. Very simple chess, very straightforward. And now, you know, sometimes in the Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation, sometimes, like let's say if he had gone knight ge2, for example, now bishop g4 is a lot, it's not nearly as good because now just f3 maybe, and maybe this e3 pawn is too weak, but in a lot of cases, like this like f3 and e4 is how white wants to expand in some variations of this opening, although it's kind of risky because d4 becomes loose. So after f3, you know, and e4, d4 can become loose. But it's still kind of common. But now with, you know, knight f3, this bishop develops on g4 very easily. There's some cases where this bishop is stuck on c8 and d7, but that's not the case in this. And, you know, with my bishop developing on g4, you know, black definitely is not worse in this opening at all. He goes queen c7, and I just developed my knight to d7, guarding e5. I could take immediately, but it does feel a bit off to do that when I don't have to yet. Like, really, I could be on the receiving end of a big attack if he castles queenside, and I just have to be careful of that. You know, but he unpins, so he could be playing knight e5 next move. So by playing knight d7, I'm guarding the e5 square from his knight, and yeah, he could move his knight out of the way, but if he does that, he is wasting time. So now I could probably play c5 and strike in the center because he's wasted time. And when your opponent's king is in the center, you should strike in the center and try to open the position up. Yeah, I felt like I didn't need to take the knight on f3, and if I did, that would have been totally fine, but unnecessary. But so instead of that, I developed my knight, and he plays h3, which, you know, now it's different. Now he's spending a turn to make me take his knight, and now I've gained a tempo. Like if we instant rewind, if I took immediately, you know, and then develop my knight, you know, it's his move. However, we go to this position where now I play c5. Not only is my knight on d7 developed, but now it's my move and I play c5. So huge difference in terms of tempo. And now this h3 pawn might be a bit looser in the future if he castles that way, which right now doesn't look like he'll castle that way. And when he played knight b5, like I was expecting that. And, you know, at first, before I played c5, I was like, okay, well, king b6 and then a4. You know, a4 is a huge concern because if I play a3, I mean, that's awesome because if he goes back to c3, then I can just take twice. Life is good. Maybe throw in a check there. But the thing is, if a4 after a6, he has an in-between move a5. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's not good for me. I have to go back to d8 or something like that, and it's just not nearly as good. Except here, I can just take the knight, and then win the rook, and then win the other rook, and I have ample material. I have an extra knight and an extra and 2 rooks for the queen, and so if he takes, I can just go here, and now I'm going to take the pawn on b6 or take the pawn on c5. So if it goes b4, for example, I just take, and I'm doing quite well here. I mean, you really can't complain. And hey, this h3 pawn is also hanging for what it's worth. But yeah, I'll probably take that pawn on b6. So instead of that, So he didn't play a4 and a5. I assume he saw the same thing, where I can just sacrifice my queen. That would have been a lot of fun. So he takes on c5. If he doesn't take on c5 and castles queenside, well, now c4 is a huge threat. Now I'm attacking the bishop, and I'm disconnecting the bishop's defense of the knight. So this is just winning here for black. So that's why he, after queen b6, he has to take on c5. And now if he goes knight d4, I have queen b4 check or queen a5 check. And if he blocks with the queen, I can go knight takes d3 check because the queen is pinned to the king. And yeah, I mean, life is just good here. I'm just up a piece. So I guess he got scared of that and decided to just castle. I guess I'm trying to think. I guess he could castle this way if he really wanted to. It just looks a little bit dicey here with the discovered attacks. Like, maybe there's a better move for me. I'm trying to think. And maybe this is as bad as I thought it would be for him. I thought this was really bad for him, but I don't know why I thought that. I guess if I do go here, king b1. I mean, I know this is better for me, but it's not actually super obvious. Like, I guess I could take and then go like rook c4 or something like that. 95. I'm actually not super convinced by this. I thought there was something better. Maybe he could castle queenside. I thought it would look. I mean, it definitely looks scary for him, and that's why I didn't play it. But I thought I had something better than just than that. He gets his king to b1, so I actually don't know. Maybe this was a decent try for him, and now he gets to try to attack me for the rest of the game. Okay. Instead of that, he castles kingside. You know, it looks Qyads and queenside looked a bit too scary for both of us. So he castles kingside, and yeah, and like right now, I don't really have an attack going. You know, like it's definitely. I would love. Okay, thinking about this position more broadly, what does he want to do? He wants to get this knight to e5. On e5 is going to control a lot of squares really well, and it can't be kicked out by a pawn. So it's a very nice outpost. Knight e5 is a very nice outpost. So I want to try to stop him from doing that, or if I can't stop him, make him use up enough time that it forces him to waste time. So here I played rook ac8. I played rook ac8, lining up the queen, the rook to the queen. If he goes knight d4, sorry, did I say e5 earlier? I meant to say d4. I was thinking about the position reversed. Yeah, if he goes the knight back to d4, firstly, I have a couple options. One, I could take the bishop and take on b2. It looks a little bit dicey. I guess I always have this square for the queen. But I guess he could always just trade and then take, and a lot of pawns are getting traded, and I might actually be worse here with how good his knight is on that square. But probably more importantly, instead of taking the bishop on d3, I could also just go knight e6. And I'm attacking the queen. And if he goes queen a5, then I can just take. And if he takes with the queen, I can take. And now he has an awful pawn structure. And I'm going to play knight h5 and knight f4. And I'm going to be targeting a lot of his position and trying to get in my rooks on the target the d4 pawn and maybe even infiltrate if he allows me to. This is miserable position for white to play. So he can't go knight e5 now. So he goes queen e2. Which, you know, gets out of the discovery. And now I just go knight e6. Knight e6 anyways. So now, once again, if he goes here, in this case, I can take the pawn if I want to. I can also just go knight h5, knight f4, or rook fe8 first. Like, I have so many easy moves. So he can't go then. So he goes bishop f5, but now I go rook e8. And now what do you do? Once again, you cannot go knight d4. Oh, I keep saying e5. You can't go knight d4 once again because now there's an X-ray. So he ends up trading on e6 and then goes queen d3. Probably you should develop one of your rooks out. However, actually there is no however. You just develop your rooks. You know, get your rooks on open files. Like, that's just a good idea. So that's what he probably should do. You know, in this case, you know, I have rook c4, perhaps, you know, disconnecting his queen from the defense of the knight. And if he puts his knight back to c3, then I can go d4, opening the position up. In this case, I'm trying to think, because if he goes here, no, I actually can't go d4 because my rook hangs. So actually, yeah. So if knight c3, probably, honestly, could go rook h4. Honestly, like why not? And yeah, if you take, then I can take and take, and then check here and check. Whoops, that's not check. Check maybe. Not sure. Not sure at all. It's probably not the best way to go about it. But yeah, but there's often this rook lift idea of like rook c4 to rook h4, or maybe even rook c6 to g6, something like that. Okay. So, but point is, he probably should have developed one of his rooks towards the center, but instead he went knight e5. Oh, sorry, he didn't go knight e5. He went queen e3 to get out of the pin. My rook was excavating his queen, so now he gets out of the pin. So now he can play knight d4. But now I think we're 13 minutes here. I was at 25 minutes. I think down to 12 minutes on this one move. And after this game, he said that was a gangster move. so it's knight h7. Giving up the pawn on d5, although you really should not take it. Well, firstly, because you lose a knight. So that's good enough reason. The queen guards the d8 square from any checks. If it did it would be like it would be almost back rank mates, but it's not. So you can't take the pawn. And the idea is I'm getting in with my knight. These two squares are weak. Knight g5, attacking those squares. Rook g6. I open the door for my rook. I open the door for my queen. I'm getting in and I'm attacking. Now the knight h7, he completes his plan. This entire game, after the immediate opening and the late opening and early middle game, he's been trying to get his knight to d4. But now he finally does it. Well, I lied. I forgot. He plays king h2 first because he was getting afraid of knight g5 ideas. So, firstly, what happens if he does play knight d4? So, if he does play knight d4, I want to play knight g5. Just going to play knight g5. If you take my rook, I'm taking back, and h3 is undefendable. Undefendable. If you go f4, I can probably just go check, and if king h2, actually if f4, if I take, check, here, check, no matter where you go, if you go here, then I can go check, here, check. If you go here, that cannot be good. I refuse to believe that's okay. I can probably at least go check here. And you get mated. And if... I'm trying to think of what else you could do. If you go here, then I probably still go rook c4. So this idea of bringing my rook in. Yeah, rook h1. Then I think this is just mate. Oh wait, no, it's not mate. Oh, it's still close though. I go check here, and then this is mate. So there's mates galore. There's checkmates galore. So yeah, if you go f4, I'm sacrificing my knight. So I sacrifice my rook, sacrifice my knight. And if you go h4, I believe it should be more of the same. Or I shouldn't say it's more of the same. It's going to be slightly different here. I could probably just go check. And if king, g2, I just go check here and checkmate. So point is, you're getting checkmated. If you take my rook on e6, I'm taking back with my queen, and you're getting checkmated. So he didn't like what he saw, so he did not play knight d4. He played king h2, and now I play knight g5 anyways. And here I was really like that. This move takes a long time for me to play because there's you have so many options. Like before, when I played knight h7, white could play a myriad of things. They could play f4, they could play h4, they could play knight d4, they could play rook a c8. And so, I was really proud of myself for spending a lot of time here to find the best move, knight h7. At least I think it's the best move. And then playing knight g5 here. And once again, he could play, f4 or something like that. Not entirely sure. Don't really remember what exactly I was going to play. I have a couple options. Like one, I could just centralize my knight on e4. If I really wanted to, I could do that. If I go check and he goes king g3, this looks pretty dicey, but maybe it's okay for him. Yeah, maybe if f4, I have to sacrifice once again. Sometimes there are some ideas of going queen d8, and if takes, then I can take, and if rook g1, I don't know. I try to survive. Yeah, so maybe this wasn't the right. I'm trying to remember what I was thinking about. Part of me just wants to go like rook c4, rook c4. So if you take, I can take. If you take, whoops. If we take, I can take. Like that seems pretty reasonable. So maybe rook c4 is still the idea. Rook c4 is so common in so many of these positions, and if like rook c4 here and like knight d4, then I can just take. And if queen takes, then there's a fork. And if pawn takes, then we actually transposed what happened in the game. Actually, so kind of funnily enough. So, anyways, all that to say, now he plays knight d4, and I play rook c4. So yeah, it's transposed into the game, or this is a game I should say. Now f4, and so like I said earlier, I can take on d4, and after pawn takes, I go queen d6, pinning the pawn to the king. And at this point, I have under a minute. I think I use up so much time trying to figure out this position. So after queen d6, I have under a minute. And he plays queen g3. He has some other options. He could go queen d2, defend the pawn like that. And if rook f3, he has king g3. And if knight check, he has king f3. And I was actually trying to figure out like what is happening here. Even now I have like some g4 stuff, but then rook g1. But I still get in though, which is good for me. So it's really dicey for him. And of course, after here, I can also just repeat like at least once. But yeah, it gets really crazy. So I actually thought like he might after queen d3 he could go king g3. If you go like if you step out of the pin and like or if you go rook g1 for example, I thought that he might do that too and have to go check here and then here he might go like h4. But then now my queen guards my pawn, so I could go here and attack the queen and keep defense of this, and maybe go rook g6. So there's like a lot of opportunities here, or a lot of things to think about. But he just goes queen g3. That allows me to go knight e4. And initially, when I saw this position from afar, after queen g4, I was originally thinking about rook g6. But then I realized he has a really annoying resource, which is check here and queen f5, pinning my rook to my king. And now rook g1 is coming, and I have to worry about, trading off my only rook, when I'm down in exchange. So I'm down in exchange, but his king is very weak. His pawns are really bad, and I'm gonna checkmate him. That's what I'm trying to do at least. So after queen g4, I just went rook f6. Just defending, not defending, but just attacking his pawn, and there's no way for him to defend it. So he goes rook g1, threatening checkmate, so I cannot take that pawn, and I go g6, and then he goes f3, which is very interesting, but it's not good enough here, because I can just take on f4, allow him to give the check, and now if he takes my knight, then it's simply check, double check actually, and then mate. Or with the rook too, actually, which is just as fun, or more fun, I should say. So yeah, so he cannot take my knight. So he goes king g2 to get out of the pin and defend his pawn. I attack his pawn. He defends his pawn. I attack his pawn. He defends his pawn. Here, instead of knight g5, I thought knight g5 was nice because it attacks, both of these pawns. But actually, probably instead of that, I probably should have gone knight d2, attacking his rook. And putting a bit more pressure on him, because now if he goes queen f3 to defend, well, now I just take his rook, and now his king is naked, and I'm up 2 pawns. like I guess I'm just up 2 pawns. I get into the end game up 2 pawns. I should be able to convert it. If he goes rook f2, then I can just simply take. Although I probably should not hang my knight. Probably not. So maybe I just take with the knight, and then now I'm threatening a check. If you go rook f1, for example, I just go check, and I'm doing totally fine here. Actually, I could probably just do another check here, and yeah, life is good. Life is good. I actually have a very sneaky move. Look at. Oh wait, no, it's not that sneaky. Never mind. I was saying I have this move because I'm threatening checkmate, but actually the queen guard, so I'm not threatening checkmate. But the thought was there. It's a thought that counts. Point is, it's quite good for me. So I should have gone knight d2. Instead, I mess up and go knight g5 because I have 2 seconds at this point. And then he goes queen c3, and at this point he has like 30 seconds or something like that. And then I go rook h4, attacking his h3 pawn. He defends. I drop my knight back. And my idea is, like my thing is I wanted to get like a good attacking configuration. And in this position, I thought my knight belonged on f4. I didn't really have that much time to calculate, so I clear the f4 square for my knight. I reroute my knight to attacking the pawn, attacking f4. He goes rook f2. I go knight f4 check. He brings his king back, and now I attack the pawn once again. If you go rook f h2, it's a little bit dicey here. Trying to remember if there's anything in particular I want to do or can do in this position. Well, in this case, I probably can just take. I can probably just take, and although it's a little bit dicey because my rook's pinned, I probably just take like this, and then if takes, and takes, and his king is still naked, and I still have an attack. It could be a little bit tricky here with a move like queen d2 here, attacking h6 if I move my knight. Although in this case it hangs the pawn, so probably queen e3 to threaten a check and to threaten h6 if I move. Yeah, that looks pretty convincing. It does look pretty convincing actually. I probably have to go like check here and block the h6 pawn, and now this pawn is hanging, and yeah, I mean if you just defend it, if you defend everything. Oh wait, no, my queen's hanging. My queen is hanging. I gotta be careful here. It's very tricky. It is very tricky. Okay. But he did not go rook f h2. Instead, I went queen e3, looking for a queen trade, and I just take on h3. So now if he goes queen trade, then we trade, and then I take, and I actually checkmate him after the queen trade. So he takes, and then goes queen e5 check, which in this case is just a clear blunder here because I just take the rook, and now I'm up 2 pawns, and in this position he resigns because I don't have to think for my next few moves. If he takes, I takes. And let's say, you go a4, I'm going to go here. And if you go here, I'm going to go here. And like, these 2 passed pawns, decide the game. And, even though I have 2 seconds, he resigns. I was kind of surprised he didn't play it out. But in this case, my play is so easy. There's nothing really for him to do. So if he did not go queen e5 check here, it would have been really interesting because, like rook h2. What happens after rook h2? I can go check, and let's say like king g2 for example, then knight g5, and the game just goes on. My king is safer, but he does have the rook and queen. However, the queen and knight together are a really powerful combo in creating attacks. So like for example, like if he goes f4, like what am I gonna do? Like, can I take the pawn? If I take the pawn, then he can move forward, and then I can check, which is not good for him probably. Yeah, because he has to defend. He has to defend his rook. So, he has to, think about that. And, if he doesn't do that, what does he do? Does he go queen d2? If he goes queen d2, then I can maybe... I don't even know what I want to do in this position. I could honestly take the pawn and just say, screw it, I'm taking the pawn. I have 6 pawns, you have 3. That would be very bold, but perhaps could be possible. I guess it's really scary for black here because f4 knight here, f5 attacking h6, and then if I go here now my king is feeling a little bit more airy, but maybe it's okay. I have this really great knight in the center. Oh wait, in this case the queen's hanging. Whoopsies. You cannot go f5, so yeah. And then with this many extra pawns, I can probably offer a queen trade here, because if he accepts, now I have this 3-on-1. He does have a pass pawn, but it might be okay. It's pretty tricky for me. Admittedly, it is pretty tricky. Like if he goes here. Maybe I go h5. Maybe like h5. Well, if rook here, I can always go f5. And if he can't go here because of my knight. So actually, maybe this is maybe my play isn't so hard after all. Anyways, the game will continue. If he didn't, if he just went like rook h2, it would have been a lot trickier. And because I had 2 seconds, like who knows how the game could have turned out. So I got a bit lucky here that in a time scramble he blundered into me when I have 2 extra pawns. I think he could have made it a little bit harder if he went f4. F4 now, but I guess at the end of the day, I have 2 passed pawns that are too difficult for him to defend. So I could probably just start with h4 and king g2, d4, and yeah, I mean it's not rocket science here, because I can just push both of them at the same time and win from there. So yeah, that was my my round 2 game. Let's put it to the game review. Okay, looking at it now with an engine. Okay, yeah, bishop f5 was slightly better to develop a bishop. In this case, yeah, knight f3 was fine. This is all fine. Yeah, taking immediately was better apparently. But instead, he plays h3, and now I'm able to play c5, and yeah, queen b6, very nice. And here, black is just slightly better. Knight e6, the best move. Rook f8, actually not the best move. I guess so. Okay, so a6. The idea is if takes, then takes, and if knight e5, well, now I have 2 center pawns, and now I can go e5. So I have this big center. It feels a little bit loose. Like if I go knight f5, now I go queen e6, and okay, I start attacking. And if d5, well, now this f4 square is super weak, and now knight h5, knight f4, queen g6, check. It's all coming in, so he cannot play e4 super easily. Okay, so that's very interesting. So a6 was better. So a6, d4, or knight c3, and then d4 here, breaking open. And if knight e4, then I can just take. And if pawn takes, then I can just go rook f e8, have super centralized position, rook a d1, takes. And he's going to end up with these doubled isolated e-pawns, which is super fascinating and crazy. And even here, like rook d1, rook d1, rook c2. I have an active rook. He had his bad pawns. Life is looking good. Life is looking very good here. So very interesting. a6 was better. Instead I play rook f8, which is fine, not nearly as good, but fine. We trade. F takes e6 was better once again to meet knight e5 with knight d4 with e5. Very interesting. Like I did not come up with this idea at all. It makes a lot of sense now that I'm physically seeing it. And if the rook was on f8, then now it would be on an open file. So that makes a lot of sense. I just didn't think about it like that. But instead I took back with the rook, and I went knight h7, which was an accuracy actually. Rook c4 was the better move. So if knight d4, now rook e5. So both rooks are lifted here, and we can both start doing checks. If f4, what's the move then? Rook h5. Yeah, I just start attacking on the h file. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, but I just didn't I didn't think about it like that. Instead, knight h7. The move I have for 13 minutes. Inaccuracy. The position's equal. A king h2. f4 was the only move there. Yeah, I forgot. If rook f4, or sorry, pawn to f4. I forgot what I was gonna do. I knew this was an option, but I forgot exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah, I can double up on the c file. I can play a6. I can play a6. It looks a little bit like, do I really want to just take this pawn? Probably not. In this case, I don't have any compensation for losing the exchange, so I probably have to move my rook. So yeah, not very good. So f4 would have been really good by him, but instead he went king h2, I went knight g5, and now after knight d4, bam, brilliant move, rook c4, and then once again, brilliant move again, rook takes d4. So that's same rook twice, so pretty nice. And then now, yeah, it's all good from here, pinning the pawn, and I'm sure everything else was totally good here. Best moves all around. Queen f6, another brilliant move. That's funny. 3 brilliant moves. And okay, so this was actually the best maneuver. No, knight d2. Okay, so knight d2 was the miss. Yeah, knight d2 was the miss. Not nearly as good, but still very difficult for him to play. Rook h4, the best. Knight e6, the best. Oh man, that feels good. Queen a6. Queen a6. Wow. That is geometry if I've ever seen one. King e1 and knight d3 check. Dude, that is insane. King here and knight take. I almost don't want to take. Queen f6 now. You don't even take the pawn on a2 because that looks really passive. It looks really passive, but apparently it's just fine though. But man, that is insane. That is insane, man. Wow. Queen a6 is not something I saw. But I go here instead, and then we go, yeah, queen b1 would have been good. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, queen b1, check here, check. Now, after king moves, I can take on d4, or maybe even take the pawn on h3. But we both missed all that, and, I went here, and here is really bad. Because, yeah, rook takes. Rook h2 or rook e2. Black is still significantly better, but it's not losing on the spot. This was losing on the spot. So, wow. I'm going to put the whole thing in the game review. That was insane. That was really cool. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.